This is the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show. Heard every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 1 p.m. right here on AM800.
Thank you for doing a good job as always.
Now back to the show with broker owner and host, Dan Gemus.
Okay, everybody, great to have you along for the ride with us on this Sunday afternoon. Yes, I am Dan Gemus. Heather with me, Aaron with me, lots going on. And it's time for our landlord tip of the week, Patrice Surette from Goldmar Property Management. Hey, Patrice, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Hey, before we get too far, this weekend's fun question is favorite TV shows of all time. What would you pick?
I think I would have to say Big Bang Theory.
Oh,
it's
good
just
one.
one you can keep on watching.
Yes.
Yep. It's like a comfort one. So anytime nothing's on, I'll throw that on, even though I've seen it 100 times. Yeah.
Big Bang Theory. Good pick.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So there's lots going on in the wonderful world of rental real estate these days. What do you see happening? What's one of the questions that we often get from listeners, Patrice, is a bit more about the eviction process. So obviously we have some landlords tuning into the show. I'm guessing that some may have had some difficulties or might be dealing with some difficulties. It's definitely something that's not, enjoyable to deal with, is it?
No, it's not. It's very frustrating, I think, is the best word. I mean, it's right from the beginning, the frustration of not being paid, trying to pay your bills when the tenant's not paying. We see a lot of, delays in the landlord tenant board still. Obviously, hearing dates takes a long, but more so the biggest thing now, the trend with these tenants is they're filing for reviews or for a stay, which means they're getting another hearing for no reason, right? Like, and you read some of their reasons that they put in the request, and they owe $20,000, and they're like, "Oh, we just need a little bit more time." Why?
Oh my gosh!
Right? Like, so, and then the next hearing's not for 2 more months. Like that was our latest one, and it's just not right. And they grant them these hearings as if something's going to change. Right? I mean, you owe $20,000. You haven't paid in 9 months. You're not going to pay now. And now we're out of the realm of a repayment. Like,
exactly. How do you,
right?
how do you repay it?
How do you
100%?
get that?
Yeah, you don't.
No. So that's the new stall tactic, and landlord tenant board is just adding to the backlog by allowing it, because they owe that much money. They shouldn't even be allowed a request. And a lot of them are the ones that agree to it. So we do a hearing, and they agree to pay their rent on time, and pay a arrears portion. And they immediately stop doing it. They don't follow it. They were at the hearing. They agreed to it. They stopped doing it. It should be a breach, and you should get the order to evict them. But instead, they're like, "Oh, extenuating circumstances. I need another hearing." Why? Like, we already had that.
Patrice,
right?
you've been dealing with this with property management for a long time, for many, many years.
Yeah.
How have you seen that transition over the years? Has it gotten worse since COVID? Was it before COVID that you started seeing, this getting bad, or when did you start noticing it?
Things were great before COVID. I mean, we used to complain even then about the timing, but looking back, it was great. Like, it was 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8, start to finish. And I'm talking about issuing the N4 to a hearing, to a termination, to hiring the sheriff, 4 to 6 weeks. The whole thing could be done.
And you're right. Back then, we used to think that was the longest.
We did. We used to complain then too. Yeah, but realistically now, we're 6 4 or 5 months for a hearing. 6 months by the time you get. Then it could be delayed because they booked too many, so it could be pushed to another date.
Now, okay, wait. Tell me more about that, because that is, to me, is astounding. So now it's all done via phone or Zoom, or is it just on phone?
Yeah.
Zoom, okay.
You can Zoom in.
Okay.
Yeah, either one.
So you're telling me that you have a court date for whatever, call it for tomorrow, and do they give you a specific time, or is it you just have to be there at the beginning of the sessions and you have to wait?
2 blocks. It's either 9 till 1 or 1 till 5.
And you got to just sit there and wait.
Log in at 9. You sit there and wait to be called. Yeah.
Now, are you watching everyone else's cases along the way, or you just literally sit there with the blank screen?
No, you're kind of put in a waiting room. No, It's like a waiting room until your hearing. So you're just basically on hold.
So you're sitting there on hold all day, and you can't leave your computer, obviously, or else you'll miss it. And then you're telling me that there are cases where after waiting for hours and hours and hours, they come back and say, oops, we're out of time. We'll reschedule you for months from now.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. because they overschedule, and you can even look at the docket. And my paralegal says it all the time. He's like, you look at the docket and there's 40 or 50, things booked for a 3-hour time window. It's not going to happen because they also have lunch, right? So they leave at 12. So if they're not done and it doesn't go over into the afternoon block because they have their own people scheduled, so you just have to be rescheduled.
Wow.
Yep. It's pretty bad.
It's criminal. Literally. I think it's criminal.
And I think that some of these adjudicators that are allowing these stays, they're allowing these other hearings, and watching those arrears climb for $20,000, and 3 months later now we're at $26,000. It's almost at the limit of what they can rule on. Like, they shouldn't be allowed to. If there's a certain amount of money owed, they should not get another hearing. There's no circumstance that makes you now get another hearing. You haven't paid a cent, you shouldn't get another hearing. Like, it's an incredible waste of everyone's time too, because also don't forget, the landlord is paying for a paralegal to sit and represent them again.
Yeah.
Right? To hear the same information, and nothing's going to change. So it's like, it's just adding to the insult of injury, where they're also not paying the rent, and now they're having more expenses simply to get to the end, which is when we can hire the sheriff.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
How do we fix this? Like, how does the tribunal fix this? Aside from, I guess, hiring more adjudicators, like, there's nothing much more they can do.
That's what they said they did, right?
I know, they said they hired more.
They hired all these people and put all this money into it, but nothing changed, like, at all whatsoever. And I think it's just broken. The tenants know how to play the system. They know how to drag it out. They know exactly how long it's going to take. And they're allowing it. And I think the rules have to change. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. You should not be allowed to do it unless there's, you missed your hearing because you're in the hospital and you can prove it. Maybe. Right? But not when you've agreed to something and you breach it immediately. You shouldn't get another hearing because you've already agreed to it. You had the opportunity at your first hearing to agree to the terms of the agreement. And then
to me,
choose not to pay.
If you don't hold to that agreement, then you should be evicted. Bring the sheriff in. Let's go.
Sure. Why do you get another hearing?
Yeah.
To discuss the same thing again, right? Like, there's a lot of things like that get hurt, and it's just clogging up the system more.
Now,
it should be moving through and out, and instead we're clogging it up with the same people in there.
Okay, so if you're a landlord out there listening, what can you do to give yourself the best odds at success and not having to deal with this? I guess proper screening is one of those things.
Proper screening, yeah. I mean, and it's really hard because people want to rent their units, right? Because the flip side of that is you wait for the right person, your unit could be empty longer than you'd really want it to be. But at the end of the day, you have to balance that out. Would you rather have it sit empty, or would you rather have somebody living in there and not paying you? Because that's the other thing. What are they doing in your unit? So it's really important to be patient, wait for the right candidate. We want people who care about their credit, who are gainfully employed, who are going to really not want any kind of, impact on their credit later. I mean, those are the best ones. Stable income, good landlord references. Anything you can do at the front end is going to help in the back, because if you just rush in and put anybody in there because you think that's, you need the money, and, you will probably regret it later. I'm not saying everyone, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a landlord is, it's found in his favor, her favor, the tenant has to get out, but they owe, like you said, $8,000 in rent. Mm-hmm. What options does the landlord have at that point to get that money?
If you gathered everything properly in the beginning, which would be a proper identification, you have all their information, you have, as much information as you can from the beginning, you can send it to collections, right? Which will impact their credit. But again, if you've rented to somebody that has bad credit, what does it matter? No, right? Sure. If it's already there. They're not going to really care if something else hits their credit. However, you could hope one day that, they go to get a car loan, or, things change down the road. The collection item is still there. So you might get something. They do take a percentage, of course, the collection agencies. And the other option is you can take landlord tenant order and you can get through small claims. So if you know where they work, then you can actually get garnishments. But the trick to that is there's a lot of work to you. You have to find them. If you can't find them, you don't know where they work, you almost have to hire a skip tracer, which that is a thing.
What does a skip tracer do?
Just to track people down,
Oh my
because
goodness.
really, if you moved them in 3 years ago and now they might not work in the same place, you have to, they basically like a private investigator almost, right? To find where they are,
Yeah.
because you have to serve those documents to them to garnish their wages. But I mean, you've been through it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Again, it's not very fruitful, right? How much is your,
I was owed about, I am owed about $17,000 from a
Yeah.
tenant, and we're getting about, I don't know, $25 a month.
right?
So by
Yeah.
by 2246, we should hopefully get.
When your kids get it, it'll be all cleared.
Yeah.
But that's right, because even though you get a garnishment, it doesn't mean he doesn't have other things coming off their
Right,
paychecks,
right.
or you just don't know. So there's definitely there's definitely some downside too, and a lot of work on your end. Collections, typically they collect a little bit more, but they take a big % off as well.
Sure.
Because they're doing all the work, right? You don't have to find them; they do it, because they don't get paid unless they collect.
Right.
So those really are your options. And the best thing landlords can do is really pool together and make sure you're publishing your orders on Open Room. There's another one, Landlord Easy, we're starting to see people doing. So just so other landlords don't get in the same situation, right?
No,
as soon as you get
help
the
each
order,
other out,
upload it, because we search every single website we can, we call landlord references. Absolutely.
But to
And
me,
don't just
the
call
landlord
and assume.
references are difficult because it could be their grandfather that you're calling.
It can. Yep. But we don't even ask the regular questions. We try and switch it up a
Sure.
little bit so that you can catch them if it's not a real landlord, right? Like try and ask them to verify the address, because if it's a grandfather, you might not know really what address it is.
But
So
imagine
you try and-
you have a horrible tenant that you just want to get out of your unit, and someone calls. I bet you a lot of those landlords are like, yep, fantastic tenant, just take them away from me. Great tenant.
Yep.
Move them on.
Yep. I don't know anymore. Like that used to be a thing, but I think anymore is like every landlord's probably been through a bad
Hell,
one, right?
yeah.
And now seeing the impact of doing that, there's a lot of when we call for landlord references, people are really like, you know what, we have to stick together. Landlords have to stick together to stop these tenants.
Yeah.
So that's a good movement, and nobody's trying to screw another landlord over. And I think it's just eventually how we're going to stop them,
Yes.
right? And they'll leave town eventually.
Yep,
they'll
they
leave
will.
town and
Yep.
do it. But, here, the local ones, most people are pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, I haven't had a bad pass along lately.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, great tips as always. If anyone has any questions or if they want some advice on how to handle a situation with their rental property, or if they want property management services, what's the best way to reach out?
If they want to give me a call, 519-252-5010, or you can send an email to info@goldmar.ca.
info@goldmar.ca. Patrice Surette, thank you as always.
You're welcome.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. That's Patrice Surette, from owner of Goldmar Property Management. Lots more to come right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.